Today's all about the listing contract. What we will be going through: contract formation, determining ownership, fee simple, specific addendas, exclusive right to sell, dual agency, inclusions, exclusions, disclosure of information when we need that, residential property disclosure disclaimer. Now, for any new agents on this call, let me just say that this screen does not make up the full listing contract that you will need for your listing. Okay. The contract itself is anywhere between 42 to 53 pages. It could even be more. These are just the main forms that you'll need for almost every listing. We'll talk about that as we get more into the contracts. Throughout this, little housekeeping items. Number one, please, there's a lot of information in a little bit of time. Please keep yourself on mute. If you have questions, at the very bottom of Zoom, there's a little chat box, or if you're in the room, there's a hand you can raise. It's on your right or left arm. And please put your questions in the chat box. This is your time. So I guarantee you, if you're thinking it and it's one of your questions, somebody else is thinking as well, and it will really help them. So as you're putting the questions in the chat box, we will absolutely be checking the chat box to get those answered. Okay. There will be certain times in here I may ask people to come off of mute for just a little Q&A that we might have regarding some of the contracts. For those on here who have not met me yet, or who I have not met yet, my name is Alana. I am the Director of Coaching and Business Development here at Keller Williams Legacy. I am not the only voice you're going to hear today. The other voice you are going to hear is Rachel, the other fellow coach here with Keller Williams Legacy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Woolbrath.
Awesome. So we're going to be tag teaming the contract. So it's not just me talking for 2 hours, and it's not just her talking for 2 hours. Okay. Before we get started, again, if you have any things you want to make sure you walk out of this room knowing, put them in the chat box so we make sure we get those as well. And what I'm going to do is switch screens. And I'm actually going to start with this. I'll do this one, you do the other one.
Sure.
Cool. This is a website called SDAT, S-D-A-T. Okay. Department of Assessments and Taxation. Let me ask, actually, I'm going to open this up for question. What do we get from this website as agents? What can we learn?
Ownership.
Ownership. Absolutely. What else can we learn?
How many people is on the, how many owners are on the location, or if it's business, personal, if it's an LLC or business that owns the property.
Yes. Oh, I love this. Okay. What else can we, everything she's saying so far. Yes, yes, and yes. What else can we learn?
Square footage.
Square footage. Yes. Except for the one I looked up yesterday, and we looked up to do a CMA because there wasn't square footage on it. That was a doozy. What else can we learn? Mike?
Ground rent. Ground rent exists or not?
On a different website, yes. We're going to go to that one next. Yep. I don't think you can, do you see that on this one?
It is.
It is on this one? Yes. Yes, you can. Ground rent. Yes.
Registration and redemption.
Love it. Love it. All right. So just to really show you what that looks like. So I'm on just their main page right now. I'm going to go to a county. Does anybody have an address I can look up?
You said county though?
Yeah, what county is it?
No, I was in Baltimore City.
Okay, city's fine. You want to do city?
Do 1638 East 30th Street.
Okay, hold on a minute. Let me shrink this down. Let me go to the next button. So 1638
East 38th Street.
You don't put the letter on SDAT. It won't pop up. I don't think you put the.
Okay, hold on a second. Baltimore City, street address. 1638. 38. All right, I'm gonna do, you know what? Let's go an address I know. I live in Howard County, so all my addresses I know are in Howard County. Street address. No, this is not my address. In case people are like wanting to send me presents or mail me things, I'm not putting my address on here, okay? If you want to mail me things, come see me. I'll let you know. What?
You're picking on one of your neighbors?
I am picking on a neighbor. Yes, this is gonna actually be a neighbor. So I'll do 7998. Okay, so this is what it shows. Okay, so we're looking here, we see owner's name, mailing address, et cetera, siding, brick, center unit as opposed to end unit, 3 full, 1 bath for baths, attached house, so on and so forth. I'm not going to dive into detail on what the screen looks like. I just want to show you how you can look up property information on SDAT, SDAT. Okay. So let me stop the share for a second, open it up for questions. Why do you need to, when going out to a listing appointment, would you want to go to SDAT to look up property information?
Because,
In the room?
I'm sorry. It's a listen, because people don't be honestly know everything we talking about the problem. You want to make sure you got stuff covered.
Yeah, so he said, people, for on Zoom, people, sellers
Yeah.
don't know their stuff,
Yeah.
right? So we need to inspect what we expect. So if sellers like, oh yeah, I got 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and we look it up and we're like, it says 1 bathroom. Or my favorite is, oh yeah, we got 5 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. And you look up at here and it says 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths.
Mhm.
So when you go to the house, you realize that they're considering their closed off basement a bedroom, right? Which doesn't count, right? Or they're considering some random walk-in closet a bedroom. That'd be weird, but I'm just using that as an example.
Big closet.
I mean, I have seen some huge closets. I'm just saying, not mine, but other people's, right? So SDAT is to inspect the information we need prior to going on the listing, so we have better knowledge. Okay,
Also sales price. Prior sales price.
prior sales price. Absolutely.
Could give you insight into possible equity.
It could give you insight into equity. There's actually a great place. It's, if we have time at the end, I will share a little nugget on where on Bright MLS you can actually find not insight, but actual equity. It is scary, the information that is out there now. It is super scary because it's all there. Okay. I went on and paid my bill for my mortgage. And then I went on to the site that I'll show at the, if we have time, I'll show at the end. And I was like, oh, that is super accurate on how much I still owe on my house. Good to know. Okay. Now there's a second site that's very important to save as an agent. Okay. So SDAT should be saved and bookmarked as an agent. Another site you want to save in an agent. Rachel, you want to talk about this one?
Maryland Land Wrap, that was that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Moving aside.
All right, I'm actually gonna shrink this down too. Okay, it just looks different from last time I was in here. Yes, so Maryland Land Rec, this can be really helpful, especially when used in conjunction with the last site. If you like, I know sometimes like I've been into SDAT and like all the information for ground rent isn't there and you're looking for additional information. Some of that can be found on the deed, or if you want to see the deed, that's what you can do through Maryland Land Rec. So that was in what, Baltimore City, so we can come up here to the, oh, that's right, we were looking up that yours, or not yours, but your neighbor. No, I mean, we know that because your name was not on there unless you have an alias, right? And sign in. Why isn't it going to the sheet? You can find by county, just like we did with the last one. Here we go. Now, if we go back to SDAT, where Alana just was, it is right up here at the top here. You can see deed reference, gives you the book and page number right here. And if we go back, I just realized you can, realized to, there we go. I have to hide all of it. You look at it again. I forgot it was two separate things. It's what, 17609. The starting page was 00436. All right. So by the entering that information, you can then see deeds on the home to look up to, let's just pick one other. Interesting that there's like 4 of them. Should all be the same thing, right? Yeah. But this is where you can see the deed. You can see that people wrote on it. Like, this is the real deal. This is what was submitted after the closing. This is where you can find that addendum clause, that to have and to hold. If you are looking for, if it's fee simple ground rent and trying to find more information. But this can be helpful if you want to see the deed. Anyone else use this site and find it helpful for other things that they?
This is mdlandrec.net.
No? Oh yeah, that's a good point. It was just mentioned in the room. It's, you do have to create an account, but it's free. Anyone can do it. You don't even have to be licensed, like anybody could ask for an account. But yep, if you want to see the deed, you just need that book number and page number, which, as we pointed out, you can get from SDAT, the deed reference right there.
Yeah, and those, you know, for a lot of the agents, a lot of our agents here, what's really important to know is that Baltimore City and PG County are the 2 locations in Maryland that have the majority of ground rent. Right? Doesn't mean every property is ground rent. It just means that they're more likely to have it in those 2 county, or well, city and county. So if you are working with a, honestly, a buyer or a seller, you do want to do your due diligence. Do not trust that oh my God, I'm going to stress this. Whoo, working with so many agents and seeing this, do not trust that the agent, like let's say you're working with a buyer and you go into Bright MLS and you see the listing and it's in Baltimore City and you see that it does not have ground rent. I would still, and your buyers want to write an offer, I would still, as their professional agent, take a second, you notice it did not take long, go into these sites and just double check that, okay? If it had ground rent, the deed or SDAT will say the words ground rent, okay?
That's the redemption. Go to the right.
Got it. That's in Howard County, so I can tell you right now, there is no ground rent. But if this was Baltimore City, I would click on that to double check, right? Absolutely. This is a nice thing about working in Howard County. You don't need to deal with that. So just make sure you do your due diligence. Also, do not trust, kind of what Salim said. If you're going out to a seller's property to get the listing, to get them to sign with you, and they're like, yeah, here's my bedrooms or my bathroom, let's take a tour. And you're like, okay, is there ground rent? Is there information? You should have already looked that up ahead of time to go in, number one, knowledgeable. But also don't trust if they say, oh no, I don't pay ground rent, because they might have it and not even remember they have it and not pay, and they have all this back pay. And then whoever buys it, that's going to show up and there's going to be a problem there. There was an agent I worked with and that actually occurred. There was years and years of back pay owed. Long story short, it fell apart. Buyers had to find a new house. Okay, so again, take a second, spot check. Just check the chat box. Okay, let's dive into the contracts. Very first one we're kicking off is the most important. All of them are important because you can't have a full listing contract without every contract needed, every article needed. This one though locks in the listing. This is the one that you go to the listing appointment with to get their signatures and initials, so you walk away with that listing. What we're going to do right now, number one is, for sake of training, let me give you a little disclaimer. This is a sample. As you can see, Fred and Wilma Flintstone are buying it or selling it, okay? If you're a brand new agent, please do not start copying down all the things you see on this and just start copying, pasting into yours, because there are no two listings the same. Not only that, but at some point in this contract, we are going to talk commission. As agents in the state of Maryland, per Maryland Commission, you cannot talk commission with other agents, right? I cannot walk up to Rachel, agent to agent, and say, hey, what are you charging? Rachel could absolutely call commission and get me fined. I will be in trouble. Now, for training purposes as a coach, right here, I can talk commissions with you. There's no agent to agent we can't. So that's my little disclaimer. All right, so let's roll through this. I'm not going to read the contract because as agents, we're not allowed to read the contract. Only attorneys can actually read contracts to people, right? We do want to read it for ourselves to understand it. Again, we're the professionals. If you don't know what you're actually having people sign, that's a problem. Like you're just handing people things, just filling blanks in, handing people things. So take a minute, read things, right? They're trusting you with the largest purchase of their life. Take time out, read this, figure it out. What does it mean? Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. Let me just ask on Zoom, can you see the contract? I just want to make sure you guys can see the screen.
Yep.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes.
The share screen sometimes is weird on Zoom. All right. So we're going to go down through the exclusive right to sell to start. The date, and again, I know there's a lot of different agents on here. Some just got into real estate yesterday. Some have been in real estate years. So some of this will be a refresher. Others will be brand new. The date is the date you're bringing it to them for signature, not the date it's going live. Okay. Seller's name. These need to be the official legal names of the sellers that show up on their social security cards. So for example, if your seller goes by Bob, but his actual name on his social security card is Robert, Robert needs to be the name on this, not Bob. Okay.
Confirm that Fred's not short for something.
Right, like if I'm talking to Fred Flintstone,
I said if it's short for Frederick, you'll want.
right, if I'm talking to Fred Flintstone and you know, I'm going to ask him in my phone call, even before I go out to the appointment, because you want to have this filled in when you go out. You don't want to be sitting there in front of someone filling it in because they will ask you to leave. So I'm going to ask Fred on the phone, like, hey, I'm so excited to see you tonight at 5. Just so I know, is Fred the name of the social security card or is it something different? I'll say, oh, yep, that's it. Great. Or we'll say, no, it's Frederick. And I'll put Frederick here. Yes, please make sure you check that. Mailing address may be different than their property address, right? They may have an investment property they're selling, but live in Florida. The mailing address is their mailing address. Again, if they live there, it's going to be the same one. If they don't live there, you do need to get that. One of the biggest things with contracts, so, you know, as a coach for some years and working with hundreds of agents, I'll share some pet peeves and some definitely do not do's. One of the biggest things is do not leave blanks. Now, okay, I say that to say you can leave the fax line blank. Nobody faxes these days, okay? These contracts were written and created, I don't even know how many years ago from Maryland Real Estate, you know, Maryland Association of Realtors. I have no idea how many years ago, but it was when fax was a big thing. Like when we had pagers and faxes and no cell phone numbers and all that good stuff, and internet didn't exist. So that's okay to leave blank because nobody has faxes. But other than that, I would say almost also home telephone number. Most people don't have that either. You don't want to leave blanks except for those two. Okay. Email address, you will need to get the email address of both parties if there's 2 people selling, because you're going to need to send this to them for signature in different email accounts. Broker. We are Keller. So for us, I know we have some guests on here. This is your brokerage name. So we are Keller Williams Legacy. Okay, not KW, not KWL. Full name. Office address. Our address. Office telephone number. These are required. Who are you? What's your name? What's your phone number? Right? This is your deal. What's your email address? Then the property listing, right? So again, it says broker, gives you a little cheat sheet here. This is where the address goes that you are trying to get the listing for. Not trying, you will. This is the address you will get the listing for, okay? Please make sure you write it out in full. Just don't say, don't leave out the zip code, don't leave out the MD, right? Put the full address here. Okay. Right below that, you're going to see this is where it says fee simple or ground rent. You've done your due diligence to find out, is there ground rent? If there is, put that in here. If there's not, then it's fee simple. Okay, so when you're sending this or having them initial it, some best practices, and I like to share best practices of top producers out there. One best practice that a lot of top producers do is they either highlight or they put the little colorful tags that you can buy from like Staples or Office Depot next to where they want their client to initial. So if I'm going out to Mike's property to list it and it's fee simple, I might highlight these blanks or put a little tab next to it so his eyes go there to sign it. Listing terms. So effective on doesn't mean it's going active, doesn't mean it's going on Bright MLS today, but this is the date that you're saying, yes, I want you to represent me as your agent. This is when you can actually start working on their behalf. The termination date, where I put in 12/30, that's completely up to you, right? Some agents put out 6 months, some agents put out a year. Some to get the seller to say yes. I've seen quick 30-day ones. Don't recommend it, but if it means landing the listing, maybe you want to do that. If it's a luxury listing, you definitely don't want less than a year because it can take up to a year to sell luxury sometimes, right? Yes, question.
So you say you got some people that do 30 days, right? Say if they forget that they do 30 days. If you get to do 30 days and they go in and got the client property still listed and everything they want the contract, is that contract voided automatically or could they never went back that date change? Or
Great question. So the date that everything you fill in here is what you transfer over to put into Bright MLS. So when you put that, let's say it's February 13th. So if I put February 13th in Bright MLS, and let's say this goes active, we'll say tomorrow. I'm super fast. Got a photographer and everything. On February 13th, well, technically on February 14th. So on February 14th, well, midnight, if you haven't changed it to closed, well, under contract, so to speak, then it will automatically go as what's called an expired listing in Bright MLS. And then 22 agents are going to call them that day to pop up and be like, I'm your new agent, because they couldn't sell it. Right. So you can, though, go into Bright MLS. Like if you get permission from written, everything in writing. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. You cannot have a conversation and be like, hey, Salim, listen, I know it didn't sell in 30 days, but we did these improvements. I'm taking fresh pictures. I'm very confident in the next 45 days, it's going to sell. The seller's like, you know what, go for it. I like you, go for it. If you don't have anything in writing, technically that seller could come back and say, well, what are you doing? I never told you to sell my house more. I never told you to do this.
you can do that in a blanket addendum.
You can do a blanket addendum. So just make sure to pay attention to your expiration date. I will tell you a little fun fact. December 31st, New Year's, has the highest number of expired listings. January 2nd is considered National Call Day. And it's considered National Call Day because more agents across the nation sit down on January 2nd and call expireds than any other day to get kick off their January. Thousands, because people are like, December 31st, December 31st. I'm not saying that's a bad date. I'm just saying that it's a great way to capture listings that time. Oh, is it your birthday?
Yeah.
Cool.
But
All right.
also important to remember, every contract has to have a
Yes, every contract has to have a termination date. You cannot leave these blank. Then it is up for interpretation. This is a legal contract. This is not just some willy-nilly thing. And if there's a blank, it may cost somebody a house. Okay. I hope that when you leave here, you maybe have a little fear to not do things wrong. Okay, the blank right after that can terminate with, I put 5, we'll talk about that, 5 days written notice. Here's the thing, best practices. Some agents say 1. Okay, you want to fire me? Great, send me an email. Some say 7, some say 5, some say 3, some say 4. Pick a number you like, right? Top producer best practices, somewhere between 3 and 5. That's what I see out there because it gives you time to hopefully maybe save it. Where 1 doesn't. 7, it's like, really, why are you holding on for a week? So that's just, again, a best practice, but because, you know, you're all CEOs of your own company and we are the umbrella for you, sharing best practices. A listing price. What do you guys agree on? What is the market saying and that you agreed on? And that goes in that blank. Okay. If at any point you determine, like you as the agent are like, you know what? No, I think we can get more, or I think we can get less. Let me go ahead and change this. You have to communicate. You have to have things in writing from your client. You can't just say, you know what, this isn't selling. Let me just drop it today. If your client did not agree to that, well, number one, if you did that and I was your client, I just fire you right then. Because there's no communication. Okay. Showing instructions, this is going to differ. This is going to be a conversation you have with your seller. Is it a vacant property? You can write the word vacant there. Is it by appointment only? 2 hours notice? Honestly, you line up 50 different exclusive right to sell contracts, and most likely the showing instructions are different on all 50 because it's per the seller, right? With our education, are providing them knowledge, but it's per them.
The showing goes there, right?
Hmm?
The showing go right there too.
Show,
Go and show.
go and show, if that's what you use. There's so many different sites and different things that agents use that, again, you can write the word central lock here, showing time. But again, you just want to have, what is the seller okay with? Do they need 4 hours notice, 2 hours notice, appointment only, right? That's your conversation. Again, if you have any questions, please ask them as we go through this. I know there's some amazing agents, both in the room and on Zoom, who have a lot of knowledge behind this. So if there's something that I even miss, please chime in and share.
Sit in the background of one of those things. She should pipe up if she has info.
Who?
Jody's in the background of one of those videos.
Oh, Jody?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, if I'm missing something or you're like, hey, what about this? Pipe up, right? It's agents helping agents. So each of these paragraphs means something, right? They're not just here just to have words on a page and make it extra long, right?
Some days I think it is.
It feels that way, yes. It does feel that way when we read it. So just make sure that you're reading this to understand, what does this mean? The marketing MLS internet advertisement. Again, I'm not going to stand here and read to you a paragraph because number one, I think we'd all fall asleep. Number two, I'm not an attorney. Right? But really what this paragraph is telling you is your seller saying yes or no to allowing you to market it on the MLS? It is so rare that you will have a seller say, no, don't put it on the MLS. It is very, very rare. But it does occur, right? It does happen. So this is a conversation you're having. I'm just saying, okay, this is going to go on the multiple listing service. So it blasts out to 200 sites out there. So all the buyers across the nation can see this and have access to your property and develop hopefully multiple offer scenarios, but we don't guarantee that. kind of the sign here if you want that. Same thing on here, a broker may not submit and market property through internet websites. Broker may submit. Okay, there's the thing with internet websites. Everything that we do in real estate these days is an internet website. Social media is an internet website, right? Posting a house on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm sure there's other ones that I can't think of right now, but I was really trying to like go down the line of them just to sound like I knew what I was talking about. Twitter. Oh, lost the name of that one. Never mind. Snapchat. That was it. Snapchat. So again, most likely your seller is going to want their property seen by as many people to get the best offers and to get more buyers. Okay. It is rare they're going to say, no, let me sign. I don't want it posted on the internet. But if you do have that one person who doesn't want that on the internet, number one, I'd probably have a conversation to find out why, because it might be an objection you can overcome and educate them. But if they truly, if there's a reason they don't want that, then they need to sign that they don't want that, and you cannot do it. You can't be like, well, I won't do this, but I'll just put it on my 24-hour news feed on Instagram. That's called the internet. Let me check for any questions in the chat. Nope, not seeing it yet. Okay. Again, so you'll see a bunch of this or this, right? Seller authorizes or does not authorize. So it's important before you go on your listing appointments to really understand what these mean, because these are the questions your seller is going to have when they're going through, like, wait a minute, what am I authorizing? What am I letting you do? Right? So it's important to at least be able to tell them, like, hey, by initialing here, this is what it means to you. Okay. Same with coming soon. Coming soon is a great way for a listing to create a little FOMO out there. Now, when a listing is coming soon, you cannot show the house, right? You can't let buyers in when it's in coming soon status, but it does go out there on Bright MLS. So that way other agents who are sending their buyers home searches will see it and be like, oh, okay, this is a coming soon. This like is what my buyer is looking for. They may even call you and say, hey, can you make it active sooner? My buyer wants to buy it, right? Which then you have to make it active before they can see it, so you can do that. So again, most sellers will say, yes, put it coming soon. Some will not. That's the seller's choice. As I scroll down here, you'll see each of these paragraphs, right? Again, read through these paragraphs to really understand, what does this mean? But when you're at the appointment, you are not sitting and reading the paragraphs to your seller, because number one, you'd be there for about 3 hours. Number two, you're not an attorney, so you're not allowed. And number three, they don't care about that. They care how much you're going to net me, how you're going to market it. Let's move forward and get me off to Florida before the snow hits more, right? Oh, I'm always going to Florida.
Harley, that is your prime example.
It really is. I feel like I need to change locations. I think I'll go to New Orleans. I'm going to change it up. Okay. Number 14. Ooh, super important spot. So I'm going to share a story right now. That's what people say. So as a coach, I do spot check a lot of these. I do help new agents with their contracts, making sure that they are dotting the I's, crossing the T's. We really, as a brokerage, we have things in place to really help you and protect you. Please use that. There was an agent, not recently, there was an agent who filled out this document. They got all the signatures and initials. They put it on Bright MLS. Everything was done. I was looking at the contract when they submitted it to me, because I was like, hey, let me see it. Let me see what you did. And they left number 14 blank. What does that mean for that agent? What do you guys think? Number 14 is left blank. What does that mean? Mike?
Technically, they don't have to get paid. The person doesn't have to pay them.
Legally. Like if there's nothing there, if it's blank, then your seller signed that I'm not paying you. And I don't think anybody is sitting here wanting to spend hours on time, because time is money, to get a listing and put a sign in the yard to work for free. Right? So please do not leave this blank. Not only that, but when reaching out, by the way, that agent is not with us. They're somewhere else. I coach nationwide. Let me just say that right now. Okay. I coach nationwide. They're somewhere else. When that agent, I said, okay, you need to put something in this blank, have a conversation with your seller and get them to now initial next to it that they approve that you're on the same page. The agent said, I was always, and they're not a new agent, by the way. I was always taught I can just add it in later. Oh, my heart stopped. I'm not gonna lie to you. My heart stopped. I almost fainted. I may have used some choice words. There might have been some words that were thrown out. I'm recording, so I can't say them here. No, just no. That means that you're basically unethical and hiding information from your seller, and the seller will have a surprise at the settlement table to give you a check for $10,000 when they didn't know anything about that. And they will 100% fight it, and the seller will win. And then I don't know what kind of trouble you're going to get in, because I'm not an attorney, but I guarantee you there's probably some trouble there. Okay, so once again, I'm a broken record. Do not leave that blank. Here is the best practice: 6% of purchase price plus a $4.95 flat fee. At Keller Williams Legacy, we do not require administrative fees, flat fees. They both mean the same thing, by the way. We do not require them here at our brokerage. Most agents, this is an agent by agent choice. Most agents do put a flat fee in, especially for listings. Number one, because your value is worth that, right? You're providing a value, you're providing a service. Number two, it really does help offset your costs that you're going to pay for signs and photography and marketing and things like that. The amount of flat fee, you'll see agents do $3.95. I've seen $4.95. It's always 95s. It's very interesting. I've seen $5.95. There's a
idea that it sounds better than 500.
It does sound better. I'm like,
but it's basically 500. You know, it's every same reason, like everything's $19.99. Instead of like
you're more like,
$20.
right, well, it's like listing a house for $489.9 as opposed to $490 actually looks better than $490. Yep. Psychology. Love it. Here's the rule of thumb. If you are going to charge a flat fee, again, administrative fee, same thing. If you are going to do that, you cannot make them different for different people. So I can't be like, well, Mike's $4.95, but you know what? Salim's house is more expensive, so he's going to be $6.95. And, you know, Rachel got me that wine the other day, so she's going to be $2.95. Okay.
You talking about the transaction fee?
Administrative fee. So transaction fee, same thing, yeah. But you wouldn't write transaction fee in the blank. Yeah. You cannot willy-nilly change the fee. You can waive it for people. So if $4.95 was my go-to, I can have that on every contract. And then when going to the listing appointment, if they are like, well, I'm interviewing this other agent, you know, they're offering 5%. What are you, blah, blah, blah. But I really like you better. I am way happier crossing out and waiving the flat fee to take the percentage than lower my percentage as a start for negotiations, right? Just make sure any changes you make, they have to initial next to it. Okay, you can't just randomly cross out stuff. You just double check for questions. Get any questions, throw them in the chat box as we're moving down. Once again, for those who join a little bit later, I do want to say that this is just an example. As an agent in the state of Maryland, you can determine what you are comfortable doing as a percentage and flat fees and all of that. As a coach, I do coach people to get the value you're worth. Come see me if you want to talk about that. And agent to agent cannot talk percentage, right? You can't walk up to an agent and be like, hey, you know that listing you have? What's your percentage? You cannot do that. Okay, moving on. This paragraph here, this blank is really important. Again, it's another one I see left blank all the time. This actually protects us as agents in the long game. If during the period of blank days, 90 is just an example. I've seen 120, I've seen 180. Again, pick a number. I don't usually see less than 90. That's kind of an average, right? If during a period of 90 days, right, the seller, basically what this says, the seller fires you, right? Seller's like, you know what? Mike, loved working with you, but I'm going to go a different route. Sending you an email. Thanks so much, man. I'm not selling right now. Okay. So I just fired Mike, my agent. Sorry, Mike. Well, now, let's say all of a sudden on, I don't know, Facebook, or I happen to see on Bright MLS that it relists and that they go under contract with a buyer that came through while it was listed with me. If it falls in that 90 days, what that means is that broker to broker can have a conversation it doesn't mean you're getting the full percentage. I have learned recently, actually. It doesn't mean you're getting the full percentage, but it means that you are due something. And that's where the brokers get involved to broker to broker talk.
Negotiate.
Discuss.
Something.
I'll say discuss, yeah. Right. True story. So I will share the story. Whoever was in the class last week, you get to hear my favorite story, which is a very sad story. Huh? Favorite being good to share, horrible story. So this agent, his name is Matt. He is not at this brokerage, different brokerage, great agent. One of his first buyers he worked with in his first year in real estate was a friend from elementary school. Not just friend, one of his best friends, one of his closest friends. And his friend hired him to be his buyer agent, get him a house. So he gets the buyer agency agreement, takes him out, looking at houses. They see a bunch of houses. He's doing his job. All of a sudden, the friend goes and says, hey, Matt, you know what? Changed my mind, I'm going a different route. He sends him an email, terminates the agreement. Matt, the agent, finds out a little time after that, in less than 90 days. He had 90 days on his agreement. Again, he was on the buyer side, but same thing. Matt ends up finding out in a week or two later that his friend, after terminating the agreement, went back to a house they saw to negotiate directly with that listing agent to try to get a better deal to buy that house. Okay. So he basically said, you're fired to try to get a better deal. So broker got involved. Matt did get something out of it, a percentage out of it. The sad part about that was now that completely ended the friendship. That was why it was. The importance of this blank, sad story, because totally ended a 30+ year friendship. I'm just saying that it happens even with your best friend. Now down here, number 15, where you see these blanks, up here, 6% is the total that we have on here. Now, a portion of that,
Skip something. Go back. The compensation due broker shall be charged against the $ box and the box with the percentage right there.
I did skip that. You were hey, good catch, Salim.
Paying attention.
Look at you paying attention. Oh my God, now I'm actually sitting here going, wait a minute, hold up, let me read it. What'd you say?
Isn't it about the EMD? Like I figured out how much.
Yes. So this is regarding the EMD. So deposit made on any contract of sale or other transfer property is forfeited to seller. Basically, it's saying what's forfeited. Right? What are they losing? I'll be honest. I don't think I've ever seen two contracts with the same number in this box. So there's a lot of best practices out there. What is a best practice of a agent who has done over 15 deals who's on this call? No, nothing.
Nobody wants to share?
Nobody wants to share.
I think I
Okay.
have 50%.
I've seen 50%. We'll say 50%. It is a average.
On the EMD.
Yeah, like.
I'll be completely honest. This is probably the one section that is blank more than anything else.
Yeah, because I was actually just sitting here thinking, like, if we doing a listing agreement, how we gonna say what the EMD gonna be? Because right now, with the way this market is, people are sitting up.
You wouldn't say a dollar
EMD.
amount, you would just say a percentage amount. Right, Mike?
I've seen this section used before. If you're in a certain market, you're trying, the buyer wants, or the seller wants to be protected. He doesn't want to go into a contract and then lose 30, 45 days if something falls apart. So they'll use that as an amount, but they want to make sure that they're being compensated if they decide to go forward, and for some reason the person backs out.
One thing for sure,
Mhm.
because EMD should be, you put 1% of the property. Because everybody know we definitely gonna get at least 1%. Because with the EMD, even though some people be lower.
You might not. 1% is a national average for
Right.
EMD checks, but it's up to the buyer.
It also
Right.
is worded as percentage of the amount forfeited.
Right. So if you
Not
say
percentage of
1%,
the
if you say
amount.
1% of amount forfeited, you're only getting 1% of whatever that is.
Right.
Right.
You know, so it would be best to leave it blank, because whatever EMD is, that's what you would get.
No.
Not necessarily.
That goes to
There's
the-
a lot of
that goes
ins
to
and
the
outs for
seller,
that.
not the agent.
There's
That's
a-
what the agent will get.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is
And EMD comes through.
Oh, this is the agent.
this is the agent.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the agent.
This is,
Right.
if.
I will say this, many agents do actually leave this blank because they don't
I don't want to take it.
want to take anything. My suggestion is, so you don't have blanks, you get in a good practice of not leaving blanks, just put a 0 if you're not going to take anything. Right, so there isn't a blank, so there isn't room for interpretation. Right? So somebody signs that, oh, it's 0, okay. Thank you, Celine, for bringing that up. So number 15, this one loves to confuse people. Number 15 talks about a sub-agent and buyer agent. We talked about the broker, the commission being 6% on this is the example. A part of that goes to you, a part goes to the buyer agent, right? Here is a best practice. If it's 6%, 3.5 goes to you. 2.5, which is a very national standard for buyer agents, goes to the buyer agent. I have seen agents do 3 and 3. I'm going to share my coaching opinion on that. Why are you doing that? Right. And I hear people say, well, I want to be nice. Well, that's great. And you're the one paying money for signs, marketing, staging, you might be paying money for different things. The buyer is not paying any money for anything. So why would you take less when you pay out more, right? So if 6% is the total, 3.5 goes to listing agent, 2.5 goes to buyer agent. This paragraph talks about a sub-agent. Who knows what a sub-agent is? By the way, over 80% of agents gets this wrong. So if you say what it is, you're probably in that, you may be in that 8%, and that is okay. That's why we're learning.
Real estate agent.
Hmm?
Licensee is a separate.
A licensee,
Any salesperson is a separate.
any salesperson is a sub-agent of the broker. Let's take that one. Yes, any sub-agent is sub-agent of the broker. And if that agent who's bringing the buyer does not have what signed?
Agency agreement.
Agency agreement. then they are actually considered a subagent as well. So everybody's a subagent, and if they don't have that agency agreement signed. Here's the thing. If you have an agent bringing you a buyer, then yes, compensate them, right? They just helped your seller sell your house, sell their house, and they also made you some money as well. Now you get to close it 14 days later and walk away and everybody's happy, right? So a best practice is putting 2.5 in the first blank and 2.5 in the next. I will tell you this, I have seen a few agents in this industry, not in this office, which I'm very happy about, but I've seen a few agents in this industry actually leave this one blank. They put a 2.5 for buyer agent, they put 0 for sub agent. Then what they have done is, by the way, when I say I've seen a few, it's like 2. Okay, 2. Also because I'm sure there's more than that. What that agent that I'm thinking about has done, they're not with Keller Williams. What that agent I'm thinking about has done is they actually see if there was a buyer agency agreement, and if not, they keep the full commission. Now that's not right. That's not morally right, in my opinion. But if they put legally, I was say if they put 0 there, right? So another important factor on the buyer side to make sure you're having that buyer agency agreement signed, or at least an understanding whom agents represent signed. Right? So you're representing that person, right? As their buyer agent. Okay. Again, I am not going to read these paragraphs to you. Please, though, if you're sitting on the Zoom or you're sitting in this room and you have not taken the time to just go through this and read it to really understand it, that'll be a great block out, like, I don't know, an hour. You probably don't need the whole hour for this one, but an hour. Just block out an hour, print this out, sit there, read it, understand it, read it a few times, because I don't know about you, but not being an attorney, the first time I got into real estate and read this, I'm like, what am I reading? Right. Okay, lead-based paint. Was the house built prior to, during, or after 78? This is also going to determine if you need to put in the disclosure, the lead-based paint disclosure, right? If it's built after 78, do you need to add that into your contract? No, you don't. If it's built in 75, do you need it? Yes, you do, right? So knowing the year is extremely important, which is also on SDAT SDAT. Okay, scrolling down, again, there's a lot of this or this, right? Home warranty, this was a huge one back in 2018, 2019, where a lot of agents were providing and offering home warranties as like, buy this, like included in the sale in the house type of thing, because the market was very different. Again, nowadays, this is just educating your sellers to determine, do they want to provide this or not, right? Scrolling down, and then down at the bottom, 32 is just a little checklist. What's all included, right? Now I just checked off a few just for examples. New agents, do not use this as, those are the ones I definitely need. There's more. And then of course, every person, every seller who is on the deed, who owns the house, needs to sign this. Final story before I turn it over to Rachel for the next steps. So my parents, true story. When I was elementary, middle school age, elementary. So I'm from Philly. We lived in a house in Philly, and my parents wanted to buy a bigger house. So they were all excited. They found a house. They went all the way up to settlement day to do the walkthrough. Then all of a sudden, the ex-wife of the husband who was selling the house, or ex-husband who was selling the house, popped up from wherever she was living and said, I never agreed to selling this house. I'm not selling it unless you pay me an extra, I forget the amount, so we're gonna make it up $40,000. So because both, we'll call them Bob and Jane, because both Bob and Jane were on the deed of that house and Jane did not sign anything, what happened?
You said who they were? Bob and Jane.
So if you have ex-husband, ex-wife, husband goes, signs everything saying I'm selling this house. Wife is off living in her own place now. They've been divorced for years. And she doesn't sign anything. They're on the deed. They both own the house. They're on the deed. And that other person on the deed pops up and says, nope, not selling, or nope, not selling unless you do an extra 40. What happens?
Can you sell it?
Can't sell it. So long story short, my parents had to walk away from the house the day of settlement. True story. Luckily we had neighbors. We got to live with them for a little bit while finding another house. So their house literally fell apart at settlement table. Now, unfortunately, prior to that, now I'm in real estate, who should have caught that?
Second.
Few people. As the listing agent, they should have looked up who's on the deed.
Yeah.
Starts with, listen, we're the professionals. Then title company should look that stuff up too, right? There's a lot of spot checks in here. So ball was dropped many times by multiple people.
That only shows one name, right? That's why another reason it's important to look at the deed in the Maryland Land Rec.
It
No.
should show all.
Yeah, it should show.
But you cannot rely.
Rely, okay.
Yeah.
Always check the physical need because that is the.
Because humans make mistakes and humans are the people that add information to estimate.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
to repeat for everybody on Zoom, humans make mistakes. We cannot, SDAT may have the different names in there, the multiple names, but we cannot rely on that because it's humans entering the information.
And also, they could misspell.
And they can misspell.
The actual
Oh,
deed
absolutely.
Will have the names that you need to use.
Absolutely.
Another situation that you were talking about is the tenancy in common, and if one person sells it, that's only their share. So you might be following buying part of a house or an interest in a house,
Not actually the house.
not actually the house itself. So again, what you said is exactly, it's very important. You need everyone on the
Yep.
deed.
Yep. If there is a husband, a wife, and their wife's mom and dad all bought the house together, you're going to add a few more signature lines here to get them all to sign. Okay. Now, it doesn't have to be, we had an instance, somebody shared a story this morning that I thought was really important. And it was, you may have two parties who don't get along. Okay. Exes who don't get along. That happens. And as long as you talk to both, doesn't have to be together. I'm going to talk to this person and then I'm going to talk to the husband. I'm going to talk to the wife, make sure they're both on the same page with selling. Then I'm going to meet with the husband, get their signatures. Then I'm going to meet separately with the wife to get her signature. So they don't even have to be in the same room. Right. You can, if you've had everything over the phone, you can absolutely electronically sign as well. Right. But again, they need to sign, all parties. Yes.
Okay.
You want to do this one?
Yes, I can do it.
All right.
You're gonna correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you say a lot of agents have trouble with this one, but I think I've got it, so. All right, so next we come to the disclosure and disclaimer statement. When you're going through this with the seller, they need to fill this out. You're not gonna fill it out. But this is basically them saying if they know there's any problems with the home, like is there, or even to start with, like, what's their water supply? They can fill out, what kind of, energy use their heating is. Is it oil? Is it natural gas? Is it electric? All that kind of information. And it's going to come down, like, do they know of any problems with the foundation, with the basement? Hopefully there are none, right? That's going to make it a lot easier to sell. But if there are major problems that they come across, that needs to be disclosed, right? if we go through this, they don't know of anything, or they're at least telling you they don't know of anything, you haven't seen anything to lead you to believe that there might be a problem, because of course they might tell you, oh no, there's no leaks, but you see what looks like a wet stain in a bedroom that looks like a roof leak, you're gonna need to disclose that. But if everything looks fine, they tell you everything's fine, they can actually use the disclaimer statement instead of filling out the other one. And this is where they would come through and say, no, they are not aware of any latent defects. If they say, oh, wait, there's this one thing, and they're about to say yes, take them back to the other form and have them do the disclosure form instead. If they're doing the disclosure form, they need to fill out all of these. They can't leave any blank. They need to do every single one. But if there's nothing, they can use the disclaimer, which of course, as you can see, is shorter and easier. But if they're about to say, yes, there's latent defect, take them back to the other one, and unfortunately, they'll have to fill out everything.
Hold on, quick question. Why can't they just do the, regular, disclaimer statement? Because in that box, it says, does the seller have not an actual knowledge of any latent defect? It say, if yes, specify, and in that little box, you just can write in there, check yes. Why
I
can't
asked
they
that
do
last time, Alana.
So. Do they get, no, I love that question. So the question for people on Zoom, just in case you didn't hear that, the question was, wait a minute, if they're like, nope, I'm good, there's no roof leaks, there's no this, but then they get to
latent
this
defect?
screen, right, the
Latent
disclaimer,
defect.
and it says, any actual knowledge of latent defects, they're like, oh, wait, yes, there is a little crack in my basement floor, right? Here's the thing. There are half of the agents are going to say, okay, click yes. You need to write in what that is. Like, we're going to write in what is that defect on this page and sign off on it, right? Some agents will go back up to make sure we fill out the disclaimer, because in essence, when they click yes, they're actually they're actually disclosing there is something, which means that on up here. So to answer your question, and
Best practice versus what?
best practice versus, this is kind of a
Something not listed.
there you go, something not listed.
The important thing, the most important thing, is that if there are any defects known, they're noted somewhere on the disclosure
Yeah.
statement. And that is for the seller, but the realtor, if they find out about a defect, are absolutely required to tell everybody about it, the seller and the buyer.
So for Zoom, just in case you did not hear that, anything, as long as if there's a latent defect, it has to be disclosed. If you see a latent defect as the agent, it has to be disclosed. Okay.
Even if the client tells you not to, you have the duty of disclosure first.
You have, right,
So-
exactly.
In other words, you talk to a neighbor, as an example, who says, yes, our neighborhood floods sometimes. And the property owner, your seller, says, no, we never had flood problems. They'll check this out, and if they won't be honest about it, but so you have the responsibility to tell everybody about the potential defect or the defect. Even if the seller doesn't say it, if you know about it, that's very important.
On Zoom, did you hear that one? Did you hear that about the flood? Okay, I see head nods. Awesome, cool. Thank you.
Want me to do this one too?
Yep.
All right.
keep going.
All right, so this is one you've seen before too, I'm sure. Inclusions, exclusions, sometimes it's more helpful than others. I've seen ones that they leave it blank, and then I had an agent have to reach out to a listing agent and say, no, really, can I have the inclusions and exclusions with something filled out? But this is really important. You're going to want to make sure that you are talking with, and I think better practice would probably be having the seller check everything off rather than you doing it. But if you're going to be filling it out for them to sign, you're going to want to make sure you know exactly what is staying and what is going. You want to make sure that if they say, well, we want to take the refrigerator with them, that you're not clicking the refrigerator on here, because then you might be on the hook to buy the new owners a refrigerator. You want to make sure that you know what is staying, what's going, have them fill it out. Like I said, best practices. Do you have something to add? You want to tell your story?
I do. I love real agent stories because they're real life scenarios from real life agents who it's happened to. So agent goes, gets the inclusions, exclusions form from the listing agent. He's working with a buyer. It's checked off saying fridge. But what he didn't notice was down here in writing, it actually said that the sellers were taking the high expensive high-end fridge and going to replace it, which is a standard old fridge. So when he submitted the contract and everything went under contract, he just, yes, they're getting a fridge. So when they did the final walkthrough before settlement, the buyers looked at the agent and was like, where's my fridge? Like, what is this fridge? This one doesn't have an ice maker. What is this? This is like a 1990s fridge, right? And that's where the buyer agent had to call the listing agent. Listing agent said, well, it was right there on the form saying, yes, we're going to have a fridge, but it's going to be a different fridge because my sellers are taking the high-end one. So the buyer agent missed that because we tend to move too fast. He moved too fast. He missed it. So to do right by his buyers, he went to settlement. Then they went to Home Depot and he took his commission and was like, I'm buying you a fridge. And he bought them a fridge. Yes, Celine.
He's a good agent. But at the end of the day, just like he missed it, they missed it. And they signed it. So technically, he really didn't have to do that. Right?
Technically. I mean, but it's, who's the professional?
Right, that's
Our
what first say.
Our buyers and sellers know nothing.
They
They know nothing. They know what we share with them. They know what we educate them with. They know how we, walk them through and say, hey, there's these defects you need to be aware of. Or, hey, just so you know, they're gonna be taking this high-end fridge, but you are gonna have a fridge.
Well, the other thing too is the buyer agent gets to see this as it's posted on Bright MLS. My guess is that buyers themselves aren't seeing what was posted on MLS. They see what the buyer agent types up in their version of this for them to see. So if they don't see, because the buyer agent misses, they're swapping out the fridges, then it is on the buyer agent.
That's a good point, because he doesn't see this.
Because contract sale, he just checked off boxes of
Yeah.
fridge,
Mhm.
right?
So that is all the way on the buyer's agent then.
He did great. He bought a good fridge.
Important to note, the disclosures have to be made before you receive an offer. So buyer.
Yes, that is a great.
Can you repeat that a little bit
Yeah,
louder?
so
Sorry.
all the seller disclosures have to be made or given to the buyers or buyer's agent prior to the issuing of any written offer. So if you post it on MLS, you're working with a buyer's agent, that's good enough. If it's just a buyer that does not have access to MLS, a random person or an attorney, somebody like that, you have to give them the seller disclosure before you accept a written offer. If you do not, the sales contract is void.
Man, you know what, we always definitely struggle. We've got all of our disclosures.
Yeah, it's,
Because in disclosure, we gotta have all that signed when you send it back over anyway. You get it.
well,
When you fill out the agreement to your buyer, he gotta do the disclosures, the EMD, and you gotta send the disclosures over, so they gonna see it too.
here's the other really important, I love that. Here's the other really important part to that, right? Because this actually just occurred, I don't see her on here. This just occurred with one of our agents recently. So she's working with a buyer. agent, not with us, listing agent didn't fill out the disclosures at all, didn't include and didn't even like, wasn't even willing to be like, oh yeah, let me send these to you. It was like, hey, just send me the contract, just send that over. We'll work all that out. What did the listing agent said, we'll work all of that out. Don't worry. Well, here's the thing. What is the buyers forget? Okay, yes, legalities, but you're now, if you did that, number one, it's void. You just, that's just wrong. But your buyers are now saying yes to a house that they know nothing about.
Mhm.
They might be like, yes, I love this house, blah, blah, and then all of a sudden realize, wait a minute, the roof needs to be replaced, and there's leaks, and there's this, and there's cracks, and it floods, and they're not leaving the fridge, and they took the oven, and they took the dishwasher. Right, but you had me sign this,
You still got inspection.
right? So
Inspection doesn't always catch everything though.
inspection doesn't always catch anything, not to mention this buyer waived it.
Oh, he waived this, okay.
Right.
And an inspection's not gonna tell you if the refrigerator's coming with the house or not.
Or if
That's
a
it.
latent defect thing. So latent defect, a property inspector might not catch that a house floods sometimes. Unless it's flooded on that day.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of thing that is so important for the seller disclosure. And that's why it's required for a buyer to have it before they make an offer. But you're right, a good home inspector should catch most of this stuff, but you're not, they're in there for a couple hours, these people live in the house, they're gonna be the ones that know, a lot of issues.
As a listing agent, best practice, you do your due diligence, you get these filled out properly, you upload them to your listing of Right MLS. So it makes it easier for the buyer agents, even though only 50% maybe max do it. Please be the ones that do it. Then when you are a buyer agent, you're working with buyers, do not submit offers without all paperwork and all disclosures. Best practice. Yes.
Right. So if we are working or if we are in a transaction with a home that was built prior to 1978, we're going to come back to the lead-based paint information, disclosure of information if they have it, and or lead-based paint's hazard form here. A lot of times, at least, and tell me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of times, like the home, if it's probably before 1978, it could have had many different owners. And so they may not know if there's lead-based paint. You can bet there probably is if it's before 1978. It might have been painted over many times, but the thing I would say, I guess, about this is they talk about presence of lead-based paint. You may be working with a seller who doesn't know. Like, yes, you might be able to assume, but they just don't know. They didn't paint it. They don't know that lead paint was used. So this is talking about if they have knowledge of a lead paint like hazard, if there was a report, if there was a problem that happened, those kind of things they disclose. There could have been one before they owned the home, but they can't be, held liable for knowing that. They're going to disclose what they know. Of course, the buyer is going to initial that they received copies of all the information and they got the Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home pamphlet. That's really important. They will initial that they know that they have 10 days if they want to conduct a risk assessment, if they're concerned about lead-based paint in the home. But this is a form basically to acknowledge what is known or what isn't known, but know that the buyer knows what their rights are.
Every single property that is built before 78, this is a requirement.
Mhm.
You can't just will it, well, they repainted everything, we don't need this. Nope. Built,
Mhm.
rule of thumb, built before 78, put this in there.
Keep going. Yeah, that's what you did, a long one. I can do a couple.
Yeah, I like it.
Plus you'll jump in anyway. So
I will, yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
That's good. All right. Consent for dual agency. If you were on or sitting in here last week when we talked about the buyer's contract, this is a reminder. Hold on, let me let somebody in. So for consent for dual agency, this is something that you're going to have your client or potential client sign. in the beginning, if they are willing to potentially enter into a contract with a another agent in the same brokerage. Thank you. The words were just like, now they still have to consent again. So like in the beginning, when you're listing their home, they're gonna say, yeah, that's fine. When you actually go under contract, they have another chance to change their mind if they want, or to affirm it. Now, if they say, no, I don't consent to dual agency, that means that, you know, if you're here with Keller Williams Legacy, that you can't really advertise it, and people from that agency then can't, like, you can't say to your agent friend, hey, I have this great house that I think would be great for that buyer you said you were working with, because your seller has not consented to dual agency.
And I will share with you over, oh my God, I don't even know, 500 contracts read. I have never seen someone not consent. Now let me knock on wood, because all of a sudden one of these is gonna walk away and be like, they didn't consent. Like we have 305 agents here. You're probably gonna have crossover of, you know, Salim selling a house and Brandon buying it.
It's not guaranteeing it. It's saying that it could happen, and your client is okay if it does, at least to begin with. Like I said, they will have to affirm it when the contract happens. All right, lockbox addendum. This is one I have not used often, so I'm going to say what I think it is, and Alana's going to correct me if I'm wrong. This is you acknowledging to your clients that, or they acknowledging that they are okay or not okay with you using a lockbox for showings. So that way you as the agent don't have to be there to open the door every time. You are basically getting their consent to put a lockbox so someone else can let themselves into their home.
100% yes, and I'm gonna add to it.
Please do.
This also protects you as an agent, because what this also says, I want to point out one item here. Seller acknowledges that the seller must take all necessary steps to safeguard or remove all valuables. Okay. So this is them saying, yes, put the lockbox on. Yes, put a key in there. Yes, agents come through and do what they need to do to show the house so we can sell. And then that owner of that house should do their due diligence to, in my opinion, take family photos down, but that's just my personal opinion. Not leave jewelry out, things like that. And if something does get stolen, this kind of gives a little protection there for us.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I have to see what's next before I read the next one. Homeowners Association. All right, so I know a little bit about this. The house that I bought a little over 2 years ago, we have an HOA. And so part of sometime, I guess, between when I signed the contract and when we, actually closed, I got the giant packet. It was a digital packet, and it was like 300 pages. It was insane of owners information. So this is if you were working with a client who lives in a home that has a homeowners association. This is basically letting the seller know that they need to what?
Abide by certain things. Yep.
And that they're going to provide, this is telling the seller that they have to provide that document with all the information, and they have usually you have to pay for it. So paying the HOA to get that form so you can give it then to the buyer who ends up buying the home.
Mine is sitting, I actually just found mine the other day, and because mine's manual, like a physical,
I have both.
like binded book. And I just found it the other day, and this thing was huge. And if I lose it, when I go to sell my house, it's a few $100s to get a new one, which is kind of a pain, but whatever.
That's the last one.
Awesome. Okay, we're gonna open it up right now. I'm gonna look at the chat box. Probably will require flood insurance disclosure if home is in flood zone. Will this ever go away? Kathy, I see your question. If you're still on here and you want to ask that question, I don't know if I completely understand what you mean by will this ever go away? And I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
Yeah, no, that was for the lead-based. Like, I am so that lead-based information is so lengthy, and I feel like where is there ever any lead paint in today's market?
I'll
Even
tell you,
In my parents' home.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
If a house is built before 1950 in particular, I would say there's a 90 to 95% chance there's lead paint in it.
I've sold some Baltimore City homes that were built in 1900s and there's no lead paint in them.
I'll tell you, I've inspected probably 5,000 properties, and maybe 3 in Baltimore City built in 1900 did not have any lead-based paint.
Wow.
So I'm just.
I just find that whole thing annoying. That's all. So I'm like, will it ever go away? That's all. So anyway, so that was different from the flood insurance. I feel like, because we were talking previously
Got it. Got
about
it.
a house flooding. Well, usually if it's in the floodplain, you're going to have to disclose that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, two
Yep.
separate comments. Sorry.
What is nice now is everything is electronic, back in the day prior to that, we physically had to print out these, like you had to provide them with this packet, right? This brochure almost for lead-based paint and all of that, where now it's just whoop, attachment. It's just electronic. It's an attachment, whether they read it or not,
Yeah.
that's up to them. I don't think I've ever met anybody who actually read it, unless maybe it's an attorney, but most people don't. Well, great questions. Thank you so much. All right. So we have a few more minutes. Any questions that you guys have on any of these topics at all regarding listings?